Donald Trump's own personal attorney just screwed up his lawsuit so bad that he's now being accused of violating the Constitution itself. In a shocking new ruling today, a federal judge just slammed Trump's amateur lawyer for their attempts to weaponize the federal government for Donald Trump. The Trump administration seriously thought that they could just turn the Justice Department on his political enemies, but this case just showed that the only real criminal is sitting in the Oval Office itself. So keep watching for Trump's new major loss in court, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more. Now, for the past few months, Donald Trump has been trying very unsuccessfully to launch revenge lawsuits against his political enemies. The two most important being Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, who sued him for illegal business practices, and then James Comey, who investigated him for ties to Russia all the way back in 2016. But Trump's revenge cases were very clearly false from the get-go, with one of the DOJ's lead prosecutors even resigning after admitting there was no real evidence to support these lawsuits.
Some breaking news. A U.S. attorney who declined to bring charges against New York Attorney General Letitia James in a mortgage fraud investigation is resigning under pressure from the Trump administration. That is according to the Associated Press. James had successfully sued President Trump for fraud. According to ABC News, federal prosecutors in Virginia found no clear evidence that she knowingly committed mortgage fraud when buying a home in the state, but Trump officials pushed the U.S. attorney to bring charges anyway. We will have much more on that tonight at 11.
Donald Trump accused Letitia James of committing mortgage fraud and James Comey of illegally leaking information to the press about him. And because there was literally no evidence of either of these, prosecutors were in near revolt at the Department of Justice. And since Donald Trump couldn't find anyone to help him and Pam Bondi abused the law, he hired his own private attorney. Now, this private attorney, a woman named Lindsay Halligan, was previously a private Trump legal advisor, and they were appointed as an intern prosecutor at the DOJ. But one thing you have to know about Lindsay Halligan is that she's never actually worked as a lead prosecutor and has spent basically zero time in a criminal courtroom. But despite having no real qualifications for the job, Halligan immediately put together a grand jury, launched 2 lawsuits without evidence, and rushed forward a stunning indictment.
Welcome back. Breaking right now. Tonight, a major update to a story we brought to you earlier in the hour. A grand jury has just handed down an indictment for former FBI Director James Comey. The Justice Department accuses Comey of lying to Congress while under oath back in 2020.
Lindsay Halligan was able to rush through indictments for Trump's 2 biggest revenge cases in less than a week, a move that was a major red flag for our democratic institutions, but something that MAGA seemed overjoyed about. But don't worry, this ultimately wouldn't last.
They put somebody in who's never tried a case, who's Trump's personal lawyer. Like, he had to go with the only person that he could actually trust to do this, and she pulled it off. She pulled it off in 4 days. They'd been trying for 9 months. Like, that alone is evidence of the malfeasance of the people before them. She got an indictment in 4 days, and they spent 9 months. She's a total amateur who's never done this before and is Trump's personal lawyer. These people are supposed to be the DOJ experts whose job it is to do this. Yeah, that's evidence of criminality, in my opinion. That's evidence of collusion or corruption of some.
Despite bringing Trump's revenge lawsuits forward in record time, the Trump administration would quickly find out why appointing someone with literally zero prosecutorial experience is a bad idea for an already shaky lawsuit. In a bombshell ruling today, a federal judge just completely threw out both of Lindsay Halligan's lawsuits and even cited potential crimes on behalf of the Trump administration. And all of this stems from Halligan's appointment itself.
A Fox News alert. The case against former FBI Director James Comey is getting dismissed. The judge ruling the appointment of interim U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan violated the Constitution. The judge also criticized the DOJ for allowing an FBI agent who viewed Comey's privileged materials to testify to the grand jury. Now, the judge also tossed the case against Letitia James. Donna, we are just getting this on the wire. Talk to us about your top-line thoughts in this moment.
Well, frankly, I'm not really surprised about the appointment of the Attorney General on that situation. I did think that that was going to be an issue, and I did think from the very beginning that Comey was going to have a valid legal argument. And what's interesting about the decision is it doesn't go to whether or not crimes are actually committed. It just goes to the way in which the prosecutor was appointed. So I'm not surprised legally when it comes to that issue.
Right. Do we foresee at all then an appeal or a different then prosecution, a second bite of the apple then with procedural things intact?
I would just, I mean, yes, it's a 29-page opinion. I was just reading through it. So sorry if I look distracted during our segment. It doesn't get to the claim of malicious prosecution that Jim Comey was making. So this is solely the appointments clause, and that's why you have both cases dismissed against both individuals.
Right. And it is kind of interesting, though, because obviously that's kind of a fluke side ruling, not on the merits of the case. But it is kind of interesting how all of these fluke side rulings always tend to seem to go in the same direction.
Okay, so let's break down what the Fox anchors were just complaining about. A federal judge just threw out Donald Trump's 2 lawsuits against his political enemies. According to reporting from the New York Times, this is because the Trump administration was supposed to get a federal court to approve his appointment of Lindsey Halligan, and they ultimately never did. The Justice Department seriously just had a random person running around the office illegally leading lawsuits for the president. And not only that, it turns out that Halligan also showed jurors old drafts of her indictments and didn't let them read all of the info on her case before getting the indictments signed. This is a huge violation of federal laws and shows just how desperate the Trump administration is to find someone to throw in jail. Halligan really only got her indictments in 4 days because she was just skipping over the court procedures. But of course, the second this story broke, Fox News was already calling this a loophole ruling used to cheat Republicans.
And it is kind of interesting, though, because obviously that's kind of a fluke side ruling, not on the merits of the case. But it is kind of interesting how all of these fluke side rulings always tend to seem to go in the same direction.
The Fox host there was just complaining that federal judges always seem to rule against Donald Trump. But maybe if Trump didn't violate federal laws to carry out his agenda, that wouldn't keep happening. Donald Trump tried to bend the rules of the law, and it ultimately blew up in his face. And James Comey pointed out this himself in a statement today, where he called the Trump lawsuit a prosecution based on malevolence and incompetence. Just take a look at this.
I'm grateful that the court ended the case against me, which was a prosecution based on malevolence and incompetence, and a reflection of what the Department of Justice has become under Donald Trump, which is heartbreaking. But I was also inspired by the example of the career people who refused to be part of this travesty. It cost some of them their jobs, which is painful, but it preserved their integrity, which is beyond price. And I know they will serve again. I was very lucky that some of the best lawyers in America stepped forward to represent me. I hope they serve as an example to more and more lawyers, especially at some of the big firms, to participate in protecting our liberty, protecting the rule of law.
James Comey and Letitia James both investigated Donald Trump in the past and revealed both business and political corruption. And even though Trump was just reprimanded by the courts for a very clear violation of the law, he doesn't seem done with these cases yet. He is so persistent about trying to find someone to punish as revenge for his own court battles that his press secretary is now threatening to appeal this ruling to the Supreme Court.
What I will say is that everybody knows that James Comey lied to Congress. It's as clear as day. And this judge took an unprecedented action to throw these cases out to shield James Comey and Letitia James from accountability based on a technical ruling. And the administration disagrees with that technical ruling. We believe the attorney in this case, Lindsey Halligan, is not only extremely qualified for this position, but she was in fact legally appointed. And I know the Department of Justice will be appealing this in very short order. So maybe James Comey should pump the brakes on his victory lap.
Donald Trump hired his own private lawyer to illegally run a lawsuit for the Department of Justice, but was stopped by a federal judge. And instead of accepting the legal setback, Trump might once again run to the Supreme Court and ask them to bend the law for his administration. And this would be shocking if it hadn't already happened like 10 times already. We'll ultimately just have to see if the Supreme Court lets Trump change the rules to appoint new people to the DOJ, but for now, Donald Trump's revenge lawsuits have once again been shut down.